Hey everyone, Britt here. This week we're doing something new that we think you're really going to enjoy. We're talking with Niki Carr about all things postpartum nutrition. Niki is a nutritionist and business owner of Radiant Health Nutrition located in Hillsboro, Oregon. She has her master's degree in nutrition from the National University of Natural Medicine and specializes in nutrition counseling and food relationship coaching. But with that, she has a ton of knowledge that is applicable to new moms and how to support not only your body, but your growing baby's body after pregnancy. If you'd like to work with Niki, all her contact information can be found in the description down below. So sit back, sign up, and let's get ready to race to wellness. Enjoy!
Hi, I'm Heather, a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, and have my BS in exercise science and behavioral coaching from Arizona State University. I currently live in Oregon with my 3 kids, who I will reference often.
And I'm Britt, a former Division I collegiate athlete turned recreational triathlete and fitness instructor. I have a degree in exercise biology from UC Davis, and I currently live in Belgium with my husband and 4 kids.
Together, we're best friends wanting to bring the world of health and fitness back to a more grounded and balanced place that's accessible to everyone.
Each episode, we're going to talk about ways to live out a well-rounded and healthy life that makes sense in today's modern, busy world. We'll cover topics related to exercise, nutrition, mindset, mental health, competition, and so much more.
So sit back,
Sign up.
and let's get ready to race to wellness.
Thinking about food, I've always really adored food, and I saw it as a way of showing love and caring for others. And I had a fortunate experience growing up where my grandparents had traveled all around the world, and they just loved to recreate dishes that they had enjoyed everywhere. So I have a broad palate, tried everything as a little kid, but I also grew up in the 90s with fat-free everything, 100-calorie packs, slim fast, the whole deal, all the dieting, right? And it was really forced upon me that I had this bigger body and that I needed to change it. And really looking back, I'm quite average. I'm still quite average. But I had that, undercurrent with food. So, and I took nutrition as a freshman in college and I loved it. I thought it was incredibly cool how you're like eating the sunshine, more or less. Like the sun shines on the plants store that as calories. We eat it, or the animals eat it and we eat them. And I just thought that was really rad. So it was something that was just always a part of my love of food. And but that bigger body situation where I was like, oh, I'll figure out nutrition later and come back to it when I have a smaller body and people will listen to me. So I kind of abandoned it for quite a long time. And then I had my first kid and she had terrible eczema. Like the worst I've seen. I still out in the wild have never seen a kid that looked quite like her. So I went through the doctor, they'd send me to a dermatologist. I was really frustrated by the way that they treated it, altogether. Or actually how they didn't treat it, I should say. And it was how do I prevent this? And they're we don't really know. And so I went down this whole rabbit hole myself of learning about food and using food as medicine and more natural ways of preventing these things. And finally went through a lot of testing, that I had to advocate for and push for that. And she learned she had a ton of food allergies. Literally every single thing on the list that you could be allergic to, she was allergic to. And so just going through that whole process and I learned that I had my own food allergies later on. I've had migraines my whole life and realized it was food related for me. So kind of put me on a path of naturopathic medicine versus the traditional Western approach. But really seeing a place for both, but putting each in their place, So I did all of that. I got over my fat phobia and I decided I was going to go back to school to be a nutritionist. And this was later after my kids were a little bit older. I went to the National University of Natural Medicine, which is a naturopathic college, but their program really combines the Western medicine approach as well and a lot of culinary skills. So we would actually get into the kitchen in class, which was so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'd love to offer those kind of classes to the community in the future. Still working on that. That's my vision boarding for the day.
Your vision boarding? Yeah. I love it.
Yes. So now that I practice in a clinical setting, I thought that my work would be hey, you need to eat this vitamin and this mineral. That is a coenzyme for this metabolic process. And, all this like high level, geeked out, like interesting stuff. And really what I found is that people just need to work on their relationship with food. There's so much perfectionism that people will just not eat because they only want to eat the perfect thing. And they're like, well, I can't eat that. And so instead I won't eat it all. And then at the end of the day, because they've skipped breakfast, they just have survived on coffee and vibes. They skip lunch because they're like too busy working, at their desk and all of that. And then, it's evening, maybe they even hit the gym on their way home, and then they're insatiable, right? Because they've literally not eaten all day. And then they come to me and they're like, oh, I'm out of control around food. I need better willpower. And I'm like, what you need is 3 meals a day. And just like kind of fixing that relationship of remembering that food is there to give us energy and all of these things, and asking people like, is it worth, giving up like 6 hours of energy in your day if you might gain 10 pounds? And for some people, that's a big choice. So anyway, so just that idea of balance and flexibility and, challenging a lot of those food rules that people carry. So that's what I do when I talk about food relationship.
I love that. You spoke to exactly who I am as a person with the coffee for breakfast. Not that I drink coffee now, but tea. I have my tea for breakfast, and then I forget about lunch until it's like, oh my gosh, I am so hungry. And so that's something that I actively work on a regular basis. And so I love that you spoke to that. And then I also love that you spoke about the fat phobia and this idea of that my body, because it doesn't look like what a nutritionist is supposed to look like, then that somehow demeans what you do. And it doesn't take away from that at all. And I love that so much. Brittany and I have talked about that a couple of times in the podcast about like, I don't look like a personal trainer or someone who would stereotypically be a personal trainer. And so overcoming those personal challenges and mental challenges of like, my body looks different than what the expectation is, and that's okay.
I also think we're kind of living in a weird time where we see ourselves so much more than you would normally.
Yes.
Like in general, because we're surrounded with mirrors and all these things. But then in the last few years, with everything moving to this digital environment, that I'm not used to staring at my face talking. Like ever. But in the last few years, that's all that I've done. And so, there's this like extra level of self-consciousness.
I was literally thinking about that yesterday because I was having a rough day, and that's all we see online now is, oh, that trainer is so beautiful and so skinny and look at their ripped arms. But when they walk around, it's like, I don't look like that.
No. I literally was listening to our podcast that we just put out today, and we were talking about like if you're going for PRs on all your reps, which is what the social media influencer does, is like everyone is the hardest they've ever pushed or the biggest weight they've ever pushed, that kind of stuff, and how unreasonable. It's not okay for that to be the expectation of life, and just being normal, being who we are as normal people is acceptable, and being able to present the same persona online as in real life. I never want people to meet me in real life and then go like, that's not who I expected from this online persona. Creating coherency between those.
I don't have enough time and energy to compartmentalize that much. I have a finite amount of energy, and I can just show up, and that's about it.
So what brought you into this scope of nutrition for postpartum and like pregnancy and supporting it that way? Because I could see you going many different routes with this.
Postpartum has always been like this soft spot for me that, I struggled a ton after having my babies. I thought I was supposed to bounce back and have my previous body, within 6 weeks, such a checkup and all, just that kind of societal pressure. And I came to realize like, I don't want my body or my life to be the same as it was before, because this was a life-altering event, and it should be life-altering and indelible, just going through that. And then I also came to this understanding, talking with a lot of my mom friends, that we wanted to change the narrative for our kids. We wanted them to have a healthier relationship with food, and that started with us. And so for a long time, it was just about being neutral about my body and being neutral about food before I could own the like body positivity, which is still like a hard pill to swallow sometimes. So at worst, I'm neutral. And so it's like, the kids are jiggling my belly, and they're like, it's really jiggly. And I'm like, yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Facts. And then sometimes it's like, yes, it's jiggly and it's beautiful because it held you inside of it, and that's like the positive stuff. But, and then also just recognizing that moms tend to be that like pivotal, like the center of the family. And if the mom makes a change, then it ripples out to the whole family. And granted, I
Yeah.
know this is stereotypical, and it's different if there's two mothers in the home or two fathers in the home, but that's just kind of that general population that I tend to work with, is that mom who wants to make those changes and to nurture and nourish that person that is nurturing and nourishing the next generation. And that feels like such a special little niche that I can hopefully share a little bit.
Yeah. I love that.
I also feel like, and I'm obviously speaking from a place of never being in this situation, but I've seen a lot of stuff online from people who have just had a baby and now they're in this like vulnerable spot because their hormones are all over the place, and so their brain is now sometimes giving them different messages because one day you're feeling great and the next day you're feeling awful, and they're in this spot of like, I don't recognize who I am, I don't feel comfortable who I am, and they see everything on social media or in magazines and things that say you can get back to your body size in 6 weeks, and when that doesn't happen for them, it can be a big letdown. And so they're in this like very vulnerable spot of, I don't know what I should be doing and what choices to make that would actually help get them to where they would want to be. So I feel like being in a more nurturing and more forgiving and graceful way of doing that is something that's so powerful and society really needs, as opposed to the environment of, if you didn't get your baby body or your pre-baby body back after 6 weeks, you failed.
I'm never getting my pre-baby body back. I don't want her. I think about like this idea, like there was a while in my life in my 20s where I said, oh, I wish I could be as skinny as I was when I was in high school. But really, like that body was still growing and changing and was not the final version of who I am as a person. And so I'm not interested in going back to adolescent size. I'm comfortable with where I am. And there's something with the body positivity that you were talking about that I was talking to my mom about in my yoga classes. When we're in a side bending forward fold in a seated position, my belly always pushes out and kind of rolls over in that position. And I've learned to take my hand and to touch my belly, that softness. And I say, I love and I honor you. And I say it over and over and over again so that I'm holding that space for myself, because it's so easy in that moment to let those natural thoughts come in and say, oh, I hate this part of my body. I don't like that it looks that way. But really that space of my body, like to your point, has held human life before. And that's a beautiful thing. And what is kind of your philosophy on nutrition? Like when we're talking to postpartum moms or just people in general, kind of what are your ideas surrounding nutrition?
I think what I see clinically a lot is that some of those symptoms of like postpartum recovery, like low energy, decision fatigue, like not feeling rested, feeling overwhelmed. And some of those, of course, are those hormonal things, or it could be, a legitimate, mental health issue. But it could also just be that you're not getting enough nutrients and not getting enough calories. And so obviously, see a mental health practitioner if those problems persist. But the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like let's make sure that basic like sleep and eating is taken care of. And, we use so many nutrients to, 3D print a baby from scratch. And then if you're still nursing afterwards, you're still sustaining life for sometimes years, and just thinking through to make sure that you have enough nutrients because you're also producing nutrients for somebody else. I think it's also hard because some of our nutrient testing it just tests for like a deficiency, right? Which a deficiency is where disease or like symptoms begin. But just being above that doesn't actually mean you're like in an optimal range either. So it's kind of like being with your gas light on perpetually, but never an empty tank, right? So you would be happier going on a road trip with a full tank of gas, right? Instead of having to stop over and over. But anyway, that especially the B vitamins, because those are water soluble. So you just will, you don't really store much. You just pee out the excess every day. So making sure you're getting enough of those so you have enough for you and your baby. And or the baby, because I know sometimes we produce milk for others.
I had that question in the notes earlier of like, do you need different nutrient needs if you are breastfeeding versus if you're not breastfeeding?
Yeah, so I was looking up, I mean, calories can be really difficult. Every individual has different needs and
Yeah.
every body size and whatever. But on average, it's like at least 600 extra calories in the first 6 months of breastfeeding. So, and then after that 6 months, they start to have solids usually, and it drops down to about 300 calories. But that's a huge amount of calories. If you think if
Yeah.
you're eating, a 2,000 calorie diet, that's nearly like another third, right?
Yeah.
A lot more calories. And then there's certain nutrients like choline and iodine and calcium that also are at higher needs because that gets pushed through to the breast milk. And then also like magnesium and zinc. And as I mentioned earlier, all the B vitamins, because we just burn through those in our metabolism and they're not stored very well. And then we can also have like omega-3s, which you've probably heard of DHA, which is pushed really heavily during pregnancy for the brain boosting component, for the baby. So those are all really important things. And surprisingly, you need less iron, which is usually something pushed during pregnancy because your blood volume's really high. But because you're not menstruating typically after, unless you had blood loss during labor, then you would have a higher iron need.
Interesting.
This also kind of plays into that whole, I need to lose the baby fat really quickly and bounce back. But if you need an extra 600 plus calories to sustain your breast milk for the next 6 months or however long, like I bet that's also something that plays with kind of your mindset and your psychology of, I'm eating too many calories, but I want to lose my extra fat, but I need to sustain my baby, but I need to be in a bikini, like all of these factors.
Yeah.
Yeah, ironically, I had a really hard time losing weight after my first child, but with my second one, she nursed all of the time. And all of the time. And I was back in my clothes at my 6-month checkup. However, I felt like garbage, and it felt like I was literally being drained of my life because I couldn't eat enough food. Like it was just, I was just exhausted and I felt so depleted. And then as she weaned and started eating solid foods, I went right back to my normal size. Like, because I guess to be fair, I had lost like extra weight and then went back to my normal size. So it's something that I've really learned over time is that weight loss and weight gain are often temporary.
Yeah.
And that your body kind of goes back to where it's really comfortable. And my body did exactly that. And yes, it was sad because I thought I was down to a smaller size finally, but I also honor that my body is where it needs to be,
Yeah.
And you probably don't feel like garbage anymore.
True. I have actual energy and I can get off the couch.
Yeah. That's always how I measure whether I'm doing well in my nutrition and any exercise that I'm doing is if I continue to have energy while doing exercise rather than it depleting my energy for the day. Then I'm like, okay, I've fed my body well enough to do that exertion.
Yeah, that's also something I practice where like I love to go for a morning walk and it's like that gives me energy. That energizes my day. And other times, other things leave me feeling like I need a nap. And I'm like, oh, that was a little too much probably. That was not for me.
Yeah.
They all went on break, so I'm here to tell you about our sponsors. No one! I'm just kidding. Okay, if you want to sponsor us, email in the description down below. Help keep this podcast amazing. Also, follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, the TikToky clocks, and Tumblr.
Do it.
So, before our break, we were discussing like nutrition needs for postpartum moms who are breastfeeding versus not. But I bet there are a lot of people who can relate when they don't know what they should be eating then to kind of make up for those extra calorie needs, or even just in general for, I need to cook dinner now for the family and I have no energy to do this. What do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I have this image in my mind of a lot of new moms with a baby in one arm and maybe a toddler at their feet and just standing at an open fridge and not knowing what to eat. And then just grabbing a little of this, a little bit of that, maybe something off the toddler's plate, just grabbing anything that is edible and already cooked, because it takes so much time and energy to actually make a meal sometimes. So, and then sometimes then feeling a lot of guilt and shame for doing that and not providing this, perfectly curated organic meal that you made from scratch. And we adopt this strategy for babies that fed is best, right? And if we're going to adopt that for babies, like, let's extend that to the moms, right? Fed is best. Some calories are always better than no calories, right? And of course, we want to have this ideal diet and we want to have everything healthy, but sometimes, like I said, some calories are better than no calories. And our brains are really bad at making good decisions when they're starving. So sometimes you gotta just have some good some calories, and then you can make a better decision afterwards. Some strategies that I often suggest to folks, and this is across the board for anybody pregnant or not, or postpartum or not, but when you're constructing a meal, I say FFP all day, every day. So FFP is fat, fiber, and protein. So at every meal, make sure you have a fat on your plate, some fiber, and some protein. An easy thing, especially for moms in this case, to have leafy greens, berries, and nuts, because those things, they're going to give you all those B vitamins, they're going to give you fiber, and they're going to give you some good sugar that is an easy carb to break down, but will keep stable blood sugar with that fiber. And nuts are going to have a lot of those vitamins and minerals that you need as well, and some fat.
Love it.
So those are some staples to have on hand all the time. And leafy greens doesn't need to be a salad every time. You can have cooked greens, and actually sometimes you digest the vitamins better if it's cooked. So varying the preparation as well.
I like that.
Yeah, so FFP all day, every day. I'm going to make a shirt one day.
Yeah, definitely.
And then another strategy that works out really well for folks is to cook once and eat twice. So, say you're roasting some broccoli for a meal, get the Costco bag and fill that entire sheet pan with broccoli. And then tomorrow, when you're standing there at the fridge with the baby in one arm and the toddler at your feet, you already have some roasted broccoli. You have a base for a meal already. And it's so much easier to double what you're already cooking than to cook it again another day. And then that way you can just microwave things. It's great.
You hear that a lot from people who meal prep a lot. And they make a bulk batch of rice and a bulk batch of broccoli and a bunch of carrots, and then they just portion them out for their meals throughout the week so that they know that I will have lunch every single day already thought out.
Yeah, and on that note, don't sleep on seasonings, right? Because fresh herbs and spices can turn that prepped meal that's in the in the fridge and make it feel fresh again, right? A nice squeeze of lemon and some fresh cilantro or parsley if you don't like cilantro. I know it's a thing. That will brighten up that meal and make it feel like it's fresh cooked. And those fresh herbs and seasonings are going to give you lots of antioxidants and polyphenols that are going to help replenish those reserves that we may have lost. And they really support a natural, your body's natural detox. So, food is supposed to taste good. And a sauce can really bring that all together, right? Because one day you have that broccoli and that bulk chicken breast that you put and some rice, and you put teriyaki sauce on it one day and it's one meal. The next day you put barbecue sauce on it, it's a totally different meal. So a sauce can really bring the things together.
Yeah.
And then also don't be afraid of convenience foods. So it's, grab some frozen veggies that are already cut up for you, and then it's not going to go bad if it's in your freezer. If you don't have time to shred the carrots, buy them shredded.
Yeah.
It's okay to not have it just perfectly that you did it all from scratch.
Yeah, I do that. I'm julienne carrots in a bulk bag is my jam. Because I can't stand grating them instead. And even with a food processor, then it gets the food processor messy and it's just a lot. So I'm nope, I'll just buy the bag just as it is and toss it in.
And they're usually not that much more expensive either. My neighbor was funny. We were talking about zucchinis and that. And he was like, just get the shredded one. You're not going to go broke over the shredded zucchini.
Sounds like good point. It's like, what, maybe $1 more?
One other thing I suggest often is like nuts and seeds. So like I really adore hemp seeds. Chia seeds make a great pudding that's full of fiber and nutrients. And if you could think about that, a seed is that has all of the things inside of it to grow an entire tree or an entire fruit or whatever it is that that seed is for. So it is very nutrient dense. So that is where you want to get nutrition in a pinch, right? Because if you want the most bang for your buck, seeds and nuts are a great use of that.
I had never thought about that, about the nutrient density. Like that makes sense why they're so nutrient dense, because they're meant to grow an entire plant. I'm like, I think of us as women, we are the nutrient dense ones. We're growing a human. So
I know, but yet we call what men give us the seed.
Yeah.
Little do they know.
Yeah, sorry, men.
Sorry, men. This podcast just went real sour on men.
Love it.
And also just the last strategy really is to lean on your inner circle. You know, if someone is coming over to visit you and they ask what you can bring, don't be shy and say, I would love if you brought me a meal. They wouldn't ask if they didn't want to do it. And if they did ask and didn't want to do it, that's on them.
That's on them. Yep.
And, you know, this whole idea of like, I remember being really frustrated with meal trains when I was postpartum, because I mean, somebody showed up, you know, to a friend of mine with literally like 4 Costco chickens.
Oh.
And it's like, what do you do with the 4 Costco chickens?
Where do you put those?
Right. And then that's actually more work, right? Because then mom has to break it down and decide what to do with it and meal prep it or freeze it. And it's more work, right? So to send a recipe, hey, if you really want to bring me a meal, I would love it if you would make this recipe for me. And something that you would actually enjoy and eat. I think, at least for me, I was always afraid to inconvenience folks. And so now kind of sitting in my own power of like, if they want to help me, I should help them to help me right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. Help them to help me right.
Yeah.
Another t-shirt.
It's also being respectful of their time too, because you're not having them do all this extra work that, yes, they volunteered to do it for you because they love you and care about you. But if you're not going to eat their meal, then why have them prep you a meal?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Do you have any go-to meals for a sleep-deprived mom? Because I know I have been there and it sucks.
Yeah, I have some suggestions. Typically for breakfast, I had mentioned before, like choline and iodine are some needs for a new mom, and the B vitamins, and hard-boiled eggs are such a great source of that, and you get the fat and the protein in there. So just adding some fiber, maybe some fresh berries to it, and hard-boiled eggs are something you can do in advance. And sometimes even if you want like some toast, avocado toast is super easy to smash some avocado on it, throw some hemp seeds on to get some of those seeds, or even slice up your hard-boiled egg on top of it. Those are really quick, one-handed food, right? Because that's another thing. What can you eat with one hand? Because there's usually a baby in another. And then also I love the idea of the like make ahead like chia pudding. It's super easy to get out some mason jars or Tupperware and just put, you know, scoop all the things in there, and they go in the fridge to set overnight. And just throw some frozen fruit in there. It'll be defrosted by the morning when you're ready to eat it. It's good for breakfast or a snack. And for lunch, don't sleep on bagged salads because they're so incredibly easy, and especially the ones that have greens besides lettuce. So like cabbage or kale or even the Brussels sprouts that are shredded, because they're going to hold that dressing really nicely for several days. And it usually actually tastes better after it's been on there for a couple days.
Yeah.
So you don't have to stress about eating it all in one setting. And grab like some soup. Soup is really nurturing. It's really warming. It's cozy. It feels like a hug, you know? And it's really easy to digest and full of nutrients. So grab a bowl of soup, grab that bag salad. Maybe you have that Costco chicken that one well-meaning neighbor brought over, you know, grab some of that. And that's a very easy lunch that hits that FFP. So
we love that. I love bag salads. I'm like, I literally, when I used to go to work outside of the house, I would like just take it in the bag with a fork. And I'm like, I just toss the dressing in, shake it up and eat it straight out the bag.
I have definitely done that in my office before.
Yeah. I was like, no dish necessary. I love it.
I
Yeah.
always put mine in the dish first, but I guess that means I have
Yeah.
to wash the dish.
Yeah, I'm like, girl, I am lazy. Well, and I appreciate these ideas for new like postpartum moms because I think back to when I had my oldest, like the difference between when I had my oldest kid to the most recent kid and the way that I care for my body is very, very different. And I wish that I had these tools in my bag as a new mom because I remember a specific story of going to my in-laws' house and my oldest couldn't latch on because I was so full with milk. And so he was crying constantly. And I remember sitting at the dinner table and somebody being like, well, just go feed him. And I'm like, I need for you to understand that it is 6 o'clock at night and I haven't eaten in the whole day because I'm just trying to nurture him and nobody is caring for me in that way. And I wish I had those tools of like, this is ready in the fridge. This is how I take care of that. Like care for my own body so that I can care for him better. I wish I had that.
And also just making it known to the caregivers and the support people. Like these are things that can help support mom as well. Having this stuff already prepared in advance for her so that she can just go to the fridge and open it up. It doesn't just have to be mom preparing the food to make sure mom can eat later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to say that earlier that when you cook once and eat twice, and to even put things away in the Tupperware exactly how you would eat it instead of in separate. And you'd be surprised how much easier it is than instead of having to grab, a Tupperware for meat, a Tupperware for a grain, and a Tupperware for broccoli or whatever, a vegetable, just to have it all in one and just go straight to the microwave. So any little thing like that you can do to make it easier to eat is great.
Love that. Well, I love this so much, Niki. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I think that our listeners are going to have some really great tips to take from this. And again, Niki is based out of Hillsboro, Oregon. We're going to provide her contact information down below. So if you have nutrition services that you need or any questions about that kind of stuff, please reach out to her. She's incredibly supportive, caring, loving, warm to be around. Please reach out.
Thank you.
Welcome to the behind the scenes.
That felt really
Now
good.
we will spend the next 4 hours off track.
Off track.
Damn it.
We can't. I have to pick the kids up at 2:35. Oh my gosh. That was fun.
That's fun. I think we should touch just a little bit though on exercise.
On exercise and postpartum? Yeah. Okay. My kind of philosophy around postpartum and exercise has really come to be around building stamina and rebuilding strength because it's such an interesting, so going through the end of my pregnancy, I'm thinking specifically of the last one because for our listeners who have not heard my story yet, that's coming or it did
it's
come
already out
at this point. Go listen. Oh shit. So I have been I've had 7 babies, 6 pregnancies, and through each one of them, my recovery process and exercise philosophy has really shifted and changed. And what I've come to realize is that you feel during the last, especially 3 to 4 months of pregnancy, I felt very weak is what I would call it because my legs were constantly tired. I was exhausted. I felt weak in that, not thinking about the fact that I was carrying an additional 30 to 40 pounds of weight in a human growing in my body, that literally. And that was where my muscles in my legs and stuff always felt really tired and fatigued. And in my brain, I equated that to weakness, which is not what it is. And so understanding then coming out of pregnancy that you're taking time and rebuilding the stamina portion of it is really where it's at because you're working on decreasing your bodily fluids change, so much blood comes out because you're literally, when you're pregnant, you have 150% of your normal blood volume is in your body. And so that's an additional weight that's in there, all that kind of stuff. So that has to work its way out of your body. And while that's happening, you are increasing your strength through that process and then increasing your stamina. Toward the end of pregnancy, I remember just not being able to stand for long periods of time. And so I spent a lot of time sitting because it was fatiguing just to stand at all. And so rebuilding that stamina to just do movement at all is really where my focus has shifted.
Yeah. Well, also you now have to, because what Niki was talking about with, you have to have more calories to breastfeed, like 600 more calories. So
600 more? I had no idea.
yeah, right. That's like an entire another meal.
Yeah. I was like, girl, I should have been eating way more.
Right? But like, so
Yeah.
let's just say we've got a base level of calories of 2,000 because that's what the daily whatever is on, and
Recommendation.
needs to change, but
yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah,
then you
agreed.
add 600 more calories for breastfeeding. And then if you're going to be doing any sort of exercise as well, you probably need to add calories onto that.
Yeah.
How many of us are
Yeah.
eating enough food while doing all of this?
None of us, which is probably a contribution to the like fatigue. Like the literal level of tired is not just because you're not sleeping well at night, like getting consistent sleep, but also just like if you're not fueling your body properly. Like I remember reading, I think the first trimester into the second trimester, like I heard that you're only supposed to be eating like 400 more calories. And then at the end of it, it's only about 500. And so to hear that number of 600 additional calories postpartum nursing, dude, when I was nursing my babies, they sucked the life out of me. Like the weight came because I was nursing so much that like I lost weight really, really easy while I was. And but that's where you don't go back to your pre-pregnancy body. Like that body doesn't exist in this universe anymore. It's not here. Like she gone. But
she gone. She moved on.
She moved on. She's living her best life somewhere else. Like,
somewhere on a beach in Ibiza. She gone.
Yep, she gone.
Love
this is
it.
the extra. Oh my God. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. But I'm like, I remember so much the nursing, the postpartum. It's funny because I have gone through pregnancy so many times. I don't consider myself an expert in it. And yet when I was like in labor this last time with the doctors, like they said, oh, nope, you probably know more about this stuff than some of these people do. I'm like,
you've been through this so many times.
So many times. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you're an expert. I would go to you with all my questions.
I remember my friend Maggie, she messaged me when she was in labor with her second kiddo, and she was like, is this labor? Is this what's happening? I'm like, yes, girl, go to the hospital.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Someday for me, that might be me. I'll be like, I have no idea. For the record, viewers, I'm not actively pregnant right now.
Yep.
I know that could be confusing.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. What was I trying to go earlier with? Oh, so I see so much of Beachbody's main attraction and draw are like moms, because you can't go to the gym with 3 kids at home. Like, where are you going to take your kids? And maybe your gym has childcare, but you have to pay for it. Like, that's expensive over time.
So expensive?
Yeah. And so having an at-home workout is an amazing solution. And so their huge draw are parents. And because of that, you see all of these people sharing about their love of it, which is great, that they're now into fitness. But then you also see the side of like, you can get your pre-body back or pre-baby body back. And I'm like, what if you don't?
Yeah.
And then you feel like you feel kind of let down on yourself because you can't get it back, but all of these other people who told you that this is possible did, and they look amazing.
Yeah. And it's bullshit. Like, I'm like, yes, you look great, but you also are a celebrity trainer who probably has trainers, who has other people doing your nutrition. You have a private chef. You have all those other options, but you don't show that on social media. You don't show that to other people, and you just say like, you could do it too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's infuriating.
Especially for someone who, like I mentioned in the interview earlier, if you're already feeling emotional and vulnerable and just not comfortable in your body, you've spoken on this before, of you have this moment of you don't recognize yourself anymore. And it's very easy for you then to be influenced one way or the other of somebody who's trying to like give you what you need of, yeah, if you just do this, it'll all be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can see
It's
that.
shady.
Yeah. Like, not everything is shady. Again, not trying to rag on any social media person or any company, but it can be a difficult time for people to navigate.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it takes advantage of somebody's vulnerability. Like,
Can very easily.
yeah, I'm like that you're like desperate. And in that moment when you're feeling conquered and you're feeling exhausted and you feel like you don't know what to do, you don't have options, and somebody's like, here, let me give you the magical silver platter. Here's the keys to the kingdom. And you're like, great. And then it's detrimental to your mental health when you give it your all, because what, like we've talked about before, like you place the blame on yourself, not on the program, not on the personal trainer. You place the blame on yourself because somewhere in there was like a flaw in your execution, and so then you blame yourself rather than putting it out elsewhere.
Yeah.
It sucks.
And it can also be difficult to figure out what you're supposed to be doing because you have so many things going on. Maybe you are a brand new mom, which someday I'm going to have to navigate this myself as well, of you now have new experience of a new baby at home and all of these new products that you have to deal with. And how do you keep a human alive?
Yeah.
How?
That's
Somebody
terrifying.
tell me, how do you keep a human?
It's for real. I like the sheer panic of walking out of the hospital with a brand new baby and like that responsibility of, I have to keep this thing alive. And I've never done this before.
No.
I don't have the skills. And there's no way to earn these skills except to do it. Like,
right? Like terrifying. I have never, outside of babysitting, which is not the same.
No,
I have never had to keep a small child alive before. And when I was a small child, my mom was doing that for me.
Yep. Yeah.
But
well, and your relationship with your partner changes. Like there's so many changes that happen all at once, and it's a lot.
Yeah. So everything is changing. A lot of things are brand new for you. And if you did not already have an established like movement or exercise routine beforehand, you probably now have to navigate that. And even if you did have an established routine before, you probably cannot go back to it. Because if you were doing some sort of weightlifting routine, you probably are not cleared to weightlift. If you were doing long distance running, you probably are not going to be able to do that mileage right now.
Yeah. Yep. Which is where it's great to have a support system. So like reaching out to somebody like Niki who does nutrition services and talks about relationships with food and works with you, or a personal trainer, some sort of support system, the people around you, like she spoke to, like if somebody offers to bring you food or to help you in some way, say yes. Like, please say yes. I wish that I had said yes so many times, but I didn't want to inconvenience somebody. And so I'd be like, no, it's okay. When really my quality of life and my mental health would have been helped in a really good way had I been like, yes, this is what I need right now.
Yeah, it would be great if you'd bring me a casserole that I love to eat.
Right? Bring me a chocolate bar. Like bring me
bring me ice cream.
Something
That'd be amazing.
Endorphins.
Cake. Bring me cake. Oh,
cake. I love
so much cake.
Good. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, if you are a new mom or supporting a new mom and you're feeling insecure in your exercise or you can't go back to it, that's normal. You're not alone in this feeling.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that I would say about, especially to the support people of new moms or new parents in general, is take the thought process out of it, take the mental load out of it. So maybe say, I'm going to stop by at this time and like clarify that it's okay for you to come by to their house, but take the thought process out of it. Like don't give them a choice or have them make a choice or make a decision in that. Just be like, I'm bringing you food. What do you want? Like
at
that
6.
sort of phrasing. Yeah, at 6, right? Exactly. So taking the decision making out of it, because again, like they're in such decision fatigue from having to care for a new person and make new decisions all the time that they can't take one single more thing. So just support them, come over, take the baby out of mom's arms, hold the baby and say, please go take a shower. Please go take a nap. Please go for a walk. Like do something for themselves. That's incredibly important for their mental health. and being able to have a support person who just simply holds the baby. Like moms, anytime that the baby starts crying, moms have a tendency to want to let me help it, because they don't want you to feel like, oh, what do I do? But it's okay for you to hold a crying baby. Like you'll figure it out. Give the baby a bottle, like give them a binky, take care of them, support them, and let the mom just have a break. Let the parent have a break. Yeah.
And we've talked about this before with me, how I have so many times been wanting to hold your baby. I love your children. I want to hold your baby. That'd be great. And then for whatever reason, it'll start to get fussy and they'll be taken away from me. And I'm just like, am I the problem? But no, I'm not the problem. As you've explained many times, it's the mom who doesn't want to inconvenience her friends with my baby's being fussy right now. And I don't want you to have them being fussy all day. And I just want them to stop being fussy. Like, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with mom not wanting to make other people upset or inconvenience other people. So on that note, mom, it's okay to want to go take a shower. We will hold your baby for you, and we will be happy to hold your baby for you. And if they start crying, it's okay.
It's gonna be okay.
20 minutes later, when you're showered, they'll still be here.
They will be alive and well, and you'll feel better for having taken a shower. Not be covered in spit up and milk and all sorts of smells. Ooh,
And your friends will like you more too, because you're not covered in milk and smells.
I love that. What are we talking about next week? The question. Overcoming decision fatigue.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. We are so good at this.
It's like we planned this out.
Oh my gosh.
First strategy in our decision fatigue. Plan out the episodes so that we don't have to worry about what comes next.
Yep, agreed. We did so good. Good job, us.
Good job, previous Brittany and Heather.
Woo. Oh, goodness.
Love it.
Next week, we're going to be talking about overcoming decision fatigue, what that looks like in your life, and providing some strategies for doing that. So we hope you join us. Bye!
Bye! Thanks for joining us today at Race to Wellness. We hope you found it both fun and informative. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can visit savagehealthllc.com and make a donation on the Race to Wellness page. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our next episode.
We love hearing from you, so feel free to ask us any questions or leave us a comment down below. You can click on the links in the description to follow us on social media, or simply send us an email at racetowellness2023@gmail.com.